Somehow I've never made a video about how to get as high a GPA as possible. I had to search my videos and I was kind of surprised. Anyway, hello and welcome to my channel if you are new, and welcome back if you have been here before. My name is Michaela and I make academic videos and vlogs, so don't forget to subscribe if you are not already so you don't miss upcoming videos. But today I am going to talk about habits to be as close to a 4.0 student as possible, because achieving a 4.0 is unfortunately very difficult. So this video is kind of designed for college students or high school students. If you are either one, I think that a lot of these strategies could be useful, especially if you're going to be applying to college or to grad school. I'm going to be covering kind of choosing your classes and being in class, the different types of assignments you might receive in class in which you could, use these strategies to try to get higher grades, and then just a couple of last general points that didn't fit in any other categories. I was like, well, I'll just throw them in at the end. You know, what's interesting, I kind of was thinking about this video and how I want to position this. I think that GPA is stigmatized slightly in some contexts, and that we should be aiming, obviously to learn and to enjoy school and not to focus on the grades, because the grades are what make schoolwork so stressful. And a lot of students struggle with their mental health because of grades and GPA. It's not a good thing, to be honest. That being said, it is a very important thing, and a lot of the decisions that colleges make, grad schools and colleges, will depend on whether or not you have a high GPA. That's just kind of the society we live in. If you choose to not focus on your GPA in school, I think that that's completely valid. If you choose to, I think that that's also completely valid, and it really depends on what you want to make out of school. I'm going to stop talking about this because this is not the point of the video. So starting with classes, I will say that I don't think in general you should pick a class based on whether or not you think it'll help your GPA. And the reason for this is because, let's say you have the argument, well, a GPA makes me happy, so taking an easy class will raise my GPA, which will make me happy. Therefore, mental health is improved by an easier class. But at the same time, I might add that taking a class that you don't enjoy necessarily, or that's not relevant to your major, not relevant to anything that you're interested in, is not going to give you happiness. So if you're kind of talking about like what class will give you the most happiness and which one you should take based on that, I would say go for the one that you're most interested in, the one that will be most useful to you in your future. However, if you're down to several classes and you're kind of interested in all of them, at that point I would say, yeah, go for the one that you think is going to help you the most. There's no point in taking, unless you want the challenge, there's no point in taking a class that's going to wreck your GPA when there's another class that's equally useful for your major, equally interesting, but also is easier in regards to how the professor grades the course. So with that in mind, do your research before taking classes. If your school has feedback where students review the classes, read everything you can find. Ask classmates who have taken this class before what their experience was. Go to ratemyprofessor.com. You can even go online and search for the course number, and you can find old syllabi from years past. There's a lot you can dig up, and old PDFs and archives and everything. And I find this really useful just for kind of knowing what the structure of the class is going to be. Check how the course is graded. Yeah, so in your research, check, does the final grade for the course, does it depend on participation and 5 problem sets and an essay? Or is 100% of the grade based on a final exam? Based on how you learn and what you feel comfortable with, this could affect your grade, and you might want to just kind of take that into account. Also in class, I don't even feel like this is in the same category, but I put it in the same category. Learn to type quickly. I think that this can honestly help your GPA, and I'll list a couple of reasons why later in this video as it comes up. So just keep that in mind for now. Learn how to type quickly. Get enough sleep. This is so important, because if you don't, you're going to be tired in class and it's so much harder to pay attention. And listening so that you understand the content is so crucial to being able to score well in a class. Go to office hours, even for dumb questions, for 2 reasons. 1, the professor gets to know you and they can put a face to the name. That's very good for having a connection with the professor, and they might be more lenient if you need help or work made up in the future. But reason number 2 is that professors often give away answers in office hours. So let's say you're going through a problem set, you are struggling on a couple of the questions, especially if there's other students in there who have some of the same questions as you, but you didn't want to ask those questions because you felt awkward asking 5 questions. I feel awkward asking more than 2 questions. But the professors will answer it, and if you just sit there, you can get so much out of office hours. It's remarkable, depending on the professor, of course. When you get a syllabus, read through it every single time. Don't skip out on reading the syllabus. Exams. Almost all classes have exams, and typically they are going to be the bulk of your grade, so these are incredibly important. They are the reason that taking good notes is so critical, so make sure that your notes are thorough and organized and the best that they can possibly be. In fact, you should experiment and see what methods method works best for you. Not only what method, but does note-taking on paper or note-taking on your laptop work better for you, on an iPad? Figure out what works best for you, so then that way you can have the best notes that you can possibly have. If your professor provides any like past tests or exams or example problems to work out, don't skip out on those. You know, if they have like videos, bonus videos to watch that will walk through one of the problems that they had on an exam 5 years ago. It's like a practice test, and it's a really good way to make sure that you're prepared to take it, and you could score significantly higher if you take the time to go through this bonus material. I already said this, but I guess it was in a different context. Get a good night of sleep. That's obvious. If you're in your room and you're taking an online exam, because this wouldn't really be the case if you were in person for the exam, make sure that you have earplugs ready, because you never know when your next door neighbor is going to decide to have a raging party, and that would make it a little bit difficult to focus. Make sure you know your strategy going in. Just like with the SATs, you have a strategy going in. You want to do that with any exam. So make sure that you know for your exam, if the professor tells in advance, whether it's going to be multiple choice or short answer or essay style answering, and also, do you lose points if you don't answer, or do you lose points if you get an answer wrong? Because this is going to determine, for example, let's say you have a problem and you don't really know what the answer is. Do you keep working on it in that moment, or do you skip it and then return in the end? Things like that. You don't want to have to make those decisions during the exam. You want to know how you're going to budget your time before you're in that exam. Okay, next is presentations, and this is a little bit shorter of a category because I've found since getting into college that there are a lot less presentations. It's just not a thing that happens quite as often, but it is sometimes part of your grade, and especially in high school, this is kind of, everyone knows this, but the best presentations are the ones that are engaging and humorous. And I know that sounds a little bit odd, like to say you need to have a sense of humor in order to score well on a presentation, but if you can get people feeling good while watching listening to your presentation, smiling, I mean, if you are good enough to make people laugh, that is going to bode very well for your grade, while being informative, of course, and very professional and delivering the information that you need to deliver. And this is going to come off really weird. I don't want this to be misconstrued as saying you need to be cracking jokes during your presentation. That's not what I'm saying at all. It's more so like, if you've ever watched a good TED Talk, the way that like the presenter knows how to communicate to the audience and make them want to listen because they're enjoying themselves, because the presenter is humorous at times. It's that kind of way. I'm waving my hand way too much. And if you're talking about a sensitive subject, of course, you don't want to have humor. Memorize your presentation always, unless like it's a really long thing and it's not like humanly possible to memorize it. You should always be striving to, because even if it's not required to memorize it, your teacher or professor will likely be much more impressed if you take the time to at least be incredibly familiar with it, that you only have to glance down at your notes, maybe at the beginning of each slide briefly. It makes you look a lot more prepared. And then make your slides stunning, don't make them boring, and make sure that you only have a few bulleted phrases on it at most. You don't want there to be any full sentences, or you don't want a lot of text on your screen. Okay, P sets. These are typically STEM related. I mean, basically, I know other colleges refer to them as P sets, but I don't know if that's like a universal thing. So basically just anything that's a worksheet that has problems on it, and it's typically like a formative, usually not that much of your grade, but they kind of add up if you have a lot of them throughout the semester. Usually these are not timed, so you have ample time to feel as confident as you can about it. And this is why avoiding procrastination is so important for these. This is like the number one thing you can do to boost your grade on it. If you want to do well, you have to start it early. If you start it early, you'll have probably, before it's due, another class or office hours, you'll have time that you can connect with your professor and talk about the assignment with them. If you procrastinate and start on your preset too late, it might be like the night before it's due or something, and you'll have no one to reach out to, except for classmates, of course, which is really not the ideal situation. Especially even if you need to send an email, your professor's not going to be impressed if you're sending an email with a question like the night that it's due, as opposed to if you send an email a few days before the assignment is due. So it's really imperative that you work on your presets as early as you can, and then also you'll just have more time to do it. You'll have time to go back and rectify any mistakes that you might have made, and you'll just feel less stressed while doing it, so that you can really take the time to check your notes and everything. Essays. So if you're doing a humanities major, you will likely have a lot more essays to do, and a lot of essays going on at the exact same time during finals. The main thing you want to do in order to score well on your essays is make sure you don't lose out on any points unnecessarily. So that means you need to have perfect grammar, like perfect grammar. I know that sounds really harsh to say, but if you need to, just use some software programs online. There are like spell check, grammar check things that you can use that will catch anything for you. This will really be helpful because you want to turn it in without losing points on something that has nothing to do with whether or not you analyzed a text text as in-depth as you could possibly could. Like, the same goes for citations and formatting. Don't lose points because you had it in the wrong font, or because you had the wrong margins on your page, or you did APA instead of MLA citations. Keep track of any important quotes that you have and sort them by theme. That's what I did while reading Middlemarch for one of the classes I'm taking right now, because I knew while reading it that I'd be writing an essay on it eventually. I didn't even write down the quotes. I just took on my notes app on my phone. I wrote down all the page numbers and categorized them by theme. That way, when it comes time to write the essay, I have all my notes basically there, and I just have to type them out. If you get the essay prompts ahead of time, read them ahead of time. That way you know, while consuming the content for the course, what you want to be focusing on and what you want to be taking notes on. Make sure you always go deeper than the surface question. So, like, I don't know how to phrase this. If you want to write an essay about a text, you don't want to just posit your thesis as exploring identity in this book. Like, yeah, I mean, you do want to do that, but you want something to be at stake, and that's what turns a good essay into an excellent essay. So exploring identity in the text to show how the author intended to do this, or to show how this part of the book allows the characters to complete their character development. I mean, I have no idea. This is very just off the top of my head. You need to show the stakes in the essay, and that will make your essay so much better, so much more analytical. Okay, participation. This is the easiest way to boost your GPA, and that's why you should not skimp on it. A lot of people complain about discussion board posts, and that's very justifiable. I don't like answering discussion board posts. I think it's boring, and I kind of dread doing it. But at the same time, I do kind of appreciate it because it's an easy way to get participation points. As annoying as it is, make sure that you always do it, because in the end, if you can do it well, especially, you're going to boost your grade in the class by doing that, and it's a lot easier than doing an exam or an essay. Try to make sure you're answering questions in class, and if it's stressful for you, like it is for me, like I feel my heart rate increasing when I'm about to answer a question in class. So what I do is I kind of chunk it out for myself. If there's like an hour-long class, depending on how long people are taking to answer questions, depending on how many people are in the class, I'll say to myself like, oh, I should be answering a question like every 20 minutes if it's a small group. I don't know. It really depends on the class. That way, when I raise my hand and answer something, I can put my hand down, and then I can listen and enjoy myself, knowing I don't have to answer anything for however many minutes. And I mean, if I actually have something really cool to say, like, then maybe I'll raise my hand, but it just gives me peace of mind knowing I'm answering the proper number of times, I'm participating, but and then I'm also not talking too much and talking over people who haven't had a chance to talk. Okay, and then just some final thoughts, I guess, on how to raise your grades. So let's say you've gotten your final grade and you're not as happy with it as you were hoping to be, and you just kind of feel that dread. What I do in these cases most of the time, and this is something you only want to do like once with a professor, you know, if you've already asked them on a midterm, you don't want to really do it again, but if you've never broached this topic before, definitely go for it. Basically, what I will do is I'll go up to my professor and I'll say something like, hey, I know this is a long shot, and I completely understand if it's not possible, but is there any way I can score back any points or retake anything or do extra credit, because I'm just feeling like I really missed the mark on this last assignment and I'm hoping to raise my grade a little bit. Something along those lines, just very diplomatic, communicates your point, but is also understanding of the fact that the professor is likely not to raise your grade. There's no harm in it. There's absolutely nothing that can go wrong. The professor will likely even be, you know, like, oh, I'm sorry, you know, there's nothing I can do. Worst case scenario, they say no. Best case scenario, you get a higher grade in the class. If the professor has expressly said that they don't do that sort of thing, then don't ask, because then you're just kind of ignoring it, and that's why you want to read the syllabus at the beginning of the course. But otherwise, yeah, just go for it. Okay, my voice memos have been on for 22 minutes, so apparently I have been monologuing. I will end this now, but I hope that this helps you raise your GPA maybe a little bit, or feel at least a little bit better that maybe you're doing the best you can do. But good luck with all of your courses, and thank you so much for watching.